1. This story dates back to about 9 years ago when I, 31 and male at the time, worked as a lead IT technician for a very large multinational company. The company had a range of different laptops available for employees to choose from that were classified by their size and weight, including standard laptops, i.e. a typical laptop with a 14-inch screen, as well as lightweight laptops, smaller, thinner, and with a 12.5-inch screen. Handy if you're a frequent traveler. Most of these laptops were pretty boring, grey business devices, nothing special to look at. Anyway, one day the computer manufacturer introduced a new lightweight laptop model that was silver in color and far more sleek and good-looking than the previous grey model. We deployed a few of these around the building and soon got a visit from a lady who'd seen one of her colleagues with a shiny new silver laptop and had developed a severe case of shiny device envy. The shiny employee said, "How do I go about getting one of those smaller laptops?" "Your current standard laptop isn't due to be replaced yet, but you can request a change to a lightweight laptop on the IT website. Your manager will need to approve it, however." Now, to be honest, I wasn't a particular fan of people who waste the company's money simply by wanting the latest shiny gadget, especially because it creates additional work for my team and involves replacing equipment that is still perfectly functional and within warranty. But I behaved in a professional manner and simply towed the company line. The shiny employee walked away, and the next day an approved request came through for a lightweight laptop. Fair enough. What she didn't know was that company policy dictated that we only provided a brand new laptop if we didn't have usable second-hand laptops in stock, i.e. those handed back to IT from people who'd left the company. Being the good IT tech that I am, I scoured our return shelf, and sure enough there was a used lightweight laptop in stock. Unfortunately for this lady, it was last year's grey model. But rules are rules, so I asked one of my team to prep it for her. She is then told that it's ready and comes along to pick it up. She takes one look at it and promptly throws a tantrum. "This isn't the one I wanted the silver one." "Sorry, company policy is that we can only order a new laptop if we don't have usable second-hand ones in stock." "But this is not the one I ordered." "Yes, it is. You ordered a lightweight laptop, and this is exactly what we've set up for you." I turn the laptop over and show her the company sticker confirming it to be the same classification of lightweight laptop as her request, and show her that it is physically smaller and lighter than her existing laptop. "No, I wanted a new silver one. This is unacceptable. I'm going to complain to your boss." She stormed off in a huff, and I could soon hear her complaining inside my boss's office. Unfortunately, although my boss knew I was just following process, he couldn't handle all of the repeated moaning and soon folded and asked me to order a new device for her. I wasn't at all pleased at being overruled when I was simply applying company policy, particularly when it's just a waste of money for a shiny employee that wants the latest silver gadget, so cue malicious compliance time. I could have just scoured our shelf of brand new laptops and dug out a new one for her. We installed dozens of laptops a week. It was a big company, so we always had plenty of new ones in stock. But I was told to order a new one, so that's the process I'd follow. "Okay, we can order a new silver one for you, but you'll need to raise another request ticket so we can order the laptop from it." I said this knowing full well that this ticket would go to shiny employee's manager once again for approval. A manager who has a finite department budget. Sure enough, an hour later I get a phone call from her manager. "Why is she ordering yet another laptop?" "She didn't like the color of the laptop we'd prepared for her. It was gray and she wanted a silver one." "How much is this going to cost me?" "Well, you'll still be paying the monthly lease cost on shiny employee's original laptop, as it wasn't due for replacement, plus the lease costs of the lightweight laptop we prepared for her earlier. And there'll also be lease costs for the new laptop as well." "Oh, hell no. I'm not paying for all that. I'll reject this ticket and I'll have a word with her." A short while later, shiny employee returns. She's rather quiet and humble now, after being chastised by her boss for trying to waste all his budget in the pursuit of having her latest shiny silver gadget. She quietly accepts the grey lightweight laptop we'd prepared earlier for her and then quickly departs. I spend the rest of my day with a grin on my face. As this question might be asked, I wanted to clarify something. The laptops are all on monthly leases, and the way it worked was that the lease cost was assigned to the last department that had the laptop. Once we redeploy a laptop to someone else, the lease is transferred. So, as we'd essentially have her original laptop and rejected laptops sitting on our shelves for a bit, her department would still pay the leases until we gave them to someone else. Even if they're only there for a couple of months, that adds up quite quickly. Either way, it was an unnecessary cost that the manager understandably wanted to avoid. 2. Around the end of 2017, my boss's wife went through a midlife crisis and decided to have an affair and move out of their house. Divorce proceedings initiated shortly after. In the following March, there was an incident between the two of them that necessitated court intervention, and for them to meet some requirements as a result. One of those requirements was her being required to walk around the house and make a list of all the items that were hers. Cue pettiness on her part. The boss's lawyer stated that in my 20 years of law practice, I have never seen a list this petty. Half of the dish towels, half of the paper plate holders, half of the pots, the curtains in the lounge, etc., etc. You get the idea. She made sure she got half of everything. However, my boss did not allow her to come into the house herself to pack, as she had spent the previous 5 months stealing out of the house at every opportunity, and he didn't trust her to pack only her belongings. So he made me do it. Small company, nothing else really for me to be doing, so I dutifully started collating her belongings. This is where the pettiness comes in. She requested 1 saucepan. I shook both, and one had a loose handle. She got that one. She asked for the curtains in the lounge. She didn't ask for curtain hooks, so I took all of those out. Half of the dish towels. She got all grotty mismatched ones, not the nice red set. Half of the containers in the storage room. Never specified she wanted the contents, so she got empty containers. I did this for the entire list, making sure I was as petty as possible when packing the house. The result? Part 1. Once she took all her stuff, she sent a very long letter via her lawyer, stating that what she received was not what was listed in her belongings. We painstakingly went through the entire list, explaining that she received exactly what was written on her list. And we couldn't possibly be at fault, since she wasn't specific enough. Part 2. Their divorce was finalized at the end of 2019. Occasionally, we still get the stray emails saying we need to return items to her that weren't provided back in 2018. It makes my petty heart burn bright knowing that she tried to be a bitch about taking things, and I turned it back on her and ruined it by being extra petty. Boss knew how petty I was being, just if I wasn't clear, and he started to follow along once he realized what I was doing. After being dragged to court several times on phony assault charges, he wasn't too pleased with her behavior. Besides, he's a very busy person, and so having me pack everything up actually did help him take some of the load off. The final list that his ex-wife submitted was almost 5 pages long, size 12 font, single-spaced. It listed everything from arbitrary decor items to this specific bowl in this room. Wherever the list was specific, we followed her request. When it got vague, half of the baking drawer, I decided to get more creative. In case I have to say this, not every woman in a divorce is the good party, and women can be evil, narcissistic people, just like men. Divorce brings out the worst in people. I'm my boss's personal assistant. It's my job to read his emails, run personal errands, like occasionally pick up his kids from school, and sometimes fend off the evil ex-wife. Although not too much, as his wonderful current partner does that for him most of the time. 3. This comes from a few years ago, when I was working as an external developer for a software house. The team was great, and the lead developer, Mark, was simply the best to work with. He was a very skilled developer, with also the ability to easily coordinate the team's tasks. We had a manager, John, who was also very friendly and easy to talk to. Our job was going smoothly. The company tracked the progress of the various projects in a software where John divided them in various steps. John set up these steps very broadly: analysis, initial setup, development, release, maintenance, to avoid creating too many of them. We then needed to input the time we spent on each of these steps. If the project was missing some steps or hit the budget cap, we couldn't input our timesheets and technically weren't allowed to start working. Per company policy, our duty was to inform our direct supervisor about the issues, in this case Mark. He then should have informed John, who finally would have had to increase the cap. As the good manager that he was, John knew all of these steps were a huge waste of marks in our time. So he allowed us to temporarily sign our timesheets locally and start or continue our work, gather himself all of our cap increase requests together, do all of them simultaneously, and then directly let us know we could input our timesheets in the software. Then the company got acquired by a hedge fund. Suddenly, a lot of new middle managers appeared, and John was moved to a higher position in a different department. To replace him, they hired Phil. Phil tried to present himself as the open-to-everyone's requests manager, but it became obvious pretty quickly that he was more of a "I'll stick to company policies as hard as I can" guy, probably to appeal to his ego, or someone higher up. First thing he did was to completely change the project's organization to better check the project advancement. Now in a project, every task, every little change had its own step and budget cap. Remember that if the step was not in the software, we weren't allowed to start working on it. He then enforced our daily timesheets input. It became mandatory to input them at maximum the next day, so we could be more responsible about marking the project progress. It could have been okay if it wasn't for the fact that the project's budgets were drastically reduced. Basically, after reaching the middle of our developments, we already reached those caps and could not insert any more timesheets. When we started asking Phil about creating those steps or raising the budget caps, like we did with John, he quickly redirected us to Mark, as that was the company policy and the proper chain of command. Mark's job quickly became hell, as he basically had to spend half the day asking Phil to create project steps or raise caps. We knew we were bothering Mark, and he knew we couldn't do anything else. He tried to talk to Phil about easing these policies, but without success. At the end of the month, everyone was behind with the timesheets input, and some tasks were not started at all. Phil gathered us and other teams and started his rant about how it was our fault since we required too much time to do our job and it was not acceptable. As our team leader, Mark was particularly targeted and probably missed some bonuses that he had no problem getting when John was the manager. His fault? Not letting Phil know soon enough that steps weren't available or budget caps were reached. That was enough for him. It was time to maliciously comply to company policies. He asked Phil to let us stay some minutes after the meeting to let us explain how to resolve the issues. He agreed, but wanted to stay in the meeting too. Mark calmly said to us, "It is imperative that you tell me and only me that steps are missing or caps have been reached as soon as you notice. You must send me an email with this precise subject. I'll then inform Phil. Only mail requests will be accepted." He remarked various times that the mail needed to have a specific subject format like Project X, Step Y, Missing, or Project X, Step Y, Cap Reached. And every time he looked at us with a look that said, "Just do like I say, trust me." We started doing exactly what he told us, and soon discovered why he was so confident. A few days passed, and an angry Phil stormed into our room yelling at Mark that his behavior was unacceptable, and an urgent meeting with the higher-ups was scheduled in a few minutes. Mark went, and after about half an hour he returned with a satisfied smile on his face, and after him a defeated Phil. He later told us that he basically set up a forwarding rule in his mailbox, which forwarded to Phil every single mail, whose subjects matched the patterns above, with a predefined text like, "Dear Phil, I'd like to inform you that the team brought to my attention the fact that Project X is missing Step Y," or similar. In those few days, he submerged Phil's mailbox with our requests. Phil probably hoped that the outcome of the meeting would have went in his favor, but the higher-up stated that no company policy was violated. Mark wasn't spamming, as those were all legitimate work-related emails, and was Phil's duty to appropriately manage the situation. Also, Mark now had proof that he was immediately notifying Phil about the project's issues, so nothing could be his or our fault anymore. I stopped working for the company shortly after, but after a few months they told me that Phil was demoted and moved to another position with lesser responsibilities. 4. My significant other gifted me for early Christmas a pair of sneakers of a certain brand with a basset hound. She bought them online and the size was way too big. I didn't even try them on, but the store is 1 block from my home, so no big deal. We went to have them exchanged. The saleswoman looked at my shoes and invoice, checked the computer, and said they didn't have them in my size, but they had the same model in other colors. I said no problem, I'll try them in blue. So she brought them, I put them on, and everything was fine. I told her I'd keep them on and put my old shoes in the box, and that's the end of it, right? Well, not so fast. She said there was a price difference, because they have this exchange policy where they give you credit for the price you paid, but then charge you for the arbitrary full price of the shoes in store, without any discounts they had. Actually, they did apply any discount you originally had, but only to the difference between the old and new price. Makes any sense? So I said, it's the same shoe. You offered me the same model, they cost exactly the same. They have the same discount. But now that I'm wearing them, and almost at the door, you want to charge me $30 to exchange them? To make things worse, they have a no returns policy. Normally I'd be fucked. A normal person would probably pay up and get it over with. What are you going to do? Look like a deadbeat cheapskate in front of your significant other and everybody in the store? But I had one last card up my sleeve, because we bought them online, and in my country you're entitled by law to return any online purchase in the first 5 days for no reason, no questions asked. So I told her, this is absurd. I can ask for a refund and get my money back and purchase them again for the same price. But she insisted that's the way the system worked. I wouldn't budge, so she got a little frustrated and even complained that the online store was her competition. She gestured to me. Get your dirty shoes out of the box. I took the shoes off and left and sent an online claim for a refund. Today they replied that I could send the shoes back in the mail or I could return them to one of their stores, so of course I went back to the same store. The saleswoman didn't seem to remember me. I asked to make a return and she asked why. I shrugged and said because of law such and such. She asked if there was a problem with the product or with customer service. She might be worried I'd raise a stink with corporate, but I said I think it's not a good idea to buy shoes or clothes online. I'd better try them on. So everything went smoothly. She entered my claim, I got my money back, and that was it. You might think, is that all? You only got even. At most you escaped from an expensive anti-customer trap. But you see, when they processed my return, they paid for my shipping back. That means they lost $4.57, so I win. I come out on top. Just for today, the mighty puppy loses. My significant other liked the shoes, so my last question was, should I now come back with the money and buy them again to give closure to my Kafkian process? Well, I checked the online store, and it seems that today, by complete coincidence, they have raised the price of the shoes to $150. They hadn't when I first went, I had checked. It seems that my petty victory came at a cost. The dog said, so you returned your shoes, now you can't have them. We'll see about that. Nobody's buying that cheap crap for $150. I'm patient. I can wait. Then, when I finally get my feet into those otherwise unremarkable sneakers, every time I wear them, I'll remember the day I not only escaped the bite of the hound, but I cost it all of $5. Then my revenge will be complete. 5. When I broke up with my girlfriend in San Francisco in 2010, I moved into a 300-square-foot room in a big run-down Victorian building in Pacific Heights, just a few doors down from the house where they filmed Mrs. Doubtfire with Robin Williams. It's an extremely nice neighborhood, and I could see the Golden Gate Bridge from the backyard. But this building was a real eyesore, and all the neighbors hated my crazy old landlady. She was an odd bird. She dressed like a poor old lady, but she owns several properties in Pacific Heights, including a mansion at the top of the hill that was worth millions of dollars. One day she asked me if I wanted to go to a party, and that Mayor Gavin Newsom and Nancy Pelosi would be there. I said yes. I offered to pay for an Uber, but she insisted we take the bus. The party was in some fancy building and was fairly lavish, and we were really out of place there. At the end of the party, she wanted me to help her steal the charcuterie and fruit so that she could feed the many raccoons and skunks that lived in the backyard of my building. I couldn't say no. She opened her giant old lady purse, and I poured the trays of goodies in, and we caught the bus back home. Things were fine for a few months, but she started making comments about the things I was throwing out in my trash. She chastised me for throwing away food that wasn't rotten yet, and for not recycling better. I told her not to go through my trash, but I think she couldn't help herself. Pretty soon, the garbage room, there were several units in my house, began to overflow with trash. I think the trash service stopped taking it away. She probably stopped paying them. There was trash everywhere, and at night, she would open trash bags to look for food for her beloved skunk family. One night, I was walking by the trash room, and she was just sitting in a rocking chair in the corner of the room, rocking slowly and staring at the wall. I think she was just taking a break from rifling through the trash. The final straw. The skunk family moved underneath the staircase in the backyard and chewed my 10-speed to bits. Only the metal frame and chain and spokes were intact. They literally ate the tires and the seat and all the wiring. I almost got sprayed by one of the baby skunks, and I realized it was time to move. Other people in the building were moving out too. None of us got our security deposit back. A few of us filed in small claims jointly against her, but she didn't show up for our day in court. Our judge knew her well. He told us, "I feel sympathy for you that you've been cheated. It will be hard for you to get your money back. I hope you can learn a lesson from this, that there are bad people out there." We got the judgment in our favor, but found it impossible to collect what she owed us. I researched her background and was shocked that she had quite a reputation. On various bulletin boards there were stories from dozens of victims of hers, and there was even an article about her in the SF Weekly. She did incredibly bold things, like take first month and last month cash from people and then tell them to wait outside while she goes to get the keys. Meanwhile, she slips out the back door with their money, and they never see her again. Several months go by. One Friday night, I meet up with a couple of the people from the court case, and we realize the only satisfaction we will ever get out of this is a prank call. I remember her saying once that she was worried about someone breaking into her house, that spooky mansion at the top of the hill. So I called her on speakerphone. It was around midnight. She answered after several rings. She had obviously been asleep. I said in a very gruff tone, "I'm in your house." She let out a loud shriek. I hung up and we all busted out laughing. We finally got our payback. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream 324. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, hit the like button, thank you kindly. And if you want to get early access to the videos, then click on the link to my Patreon in the description. That'll take you right to the page. You can select how much you'd like to support a month. And if you enjoyed the video, hit the heart with a $sign below the video to leave a tip. You don't have to do that, but I do appreciate it. And thank you kindly. Right, no other business today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is there something broken in your house that you should fix, but it's not a major problem, so you figure I'll get around to it eventually? I mention this because it's very windy today, and when it's very windy, the letterbox on the front door of my house always rattles like someone's actually chapping it to get your attention, or putting a letter through it or something. And to the point now I've learned to mostly block it out, unless I'm recording, in which case I have to pause and then do a retake. And it's probably an easy fix. Just swap the letterbox over. I could report it because, report it to the landlord. But it's not really a major problem unless it's windy, so it's just one of those things, you leave it, and it's been like that for years. Anyway, that's mine, so why don't you let me know what you think in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.